Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and Master Certified Life Coach, Susie Rosenstein.
Hey there, today's episode is all about the positive power of envy in midlife. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast Women in the Middle. I'm your host, Susie Rosenstein, your Master Certified Coach and Midlife Mentor, and I am so glad to be here with you again for this week's episode. It's all about the positive power of an emotion that you may not expect to be a good one because it usually gets such a bad rap. It's the emotion of envy. Yes, what you probably get an uncomfortable feeling from. It turns out that I love coaching on this emotion because it can be so revealing when it comes to regret-proofing your life. But just quick, before we dive into this whole thing, I want to make sure you know about a great option for how you can get unstuck and excited about your life again, envy or not. Yes, I'm talking about taking action and doing something about another uncomfortable, frustrating feeling that you have when you know you're meant for more. You know, when you're feeling stuck and you know it's probably time to do something about it. But you also know that you've just been spinning and wondering when something's going to change. That is, you're waiting or indulging in confusion. That was totally me. I get it, and it's painful. It's so frustrating. Here's the thing. I can help you get unstuck, but you can't just sit there waiting for something amazing to happen in your life. You have to do something about it. This is exactly why I created the Women in the Middle Happiness Academy. It's a 12-month group coaching program to help you get unstuck and create your happiness blueprint for your future. This means starting to think about shifting into exceptional self-care, changes you dream of making, finding your purpose, being more intentional about relationships, or even reimagining your empty nest or retirement, or both. And by the way, whatever midlife transition you're thinking about, that can also include having more fun. So if you're ready to change your life for good and feel more relaxed and confident about your future alongside an awesome community of like-minded women, let's talk about it. I would love to be able to help you get unstuck and be happier than ever before. Go ahead and book your free no-obligation momentum call at www.womeninthemiddleacademy.com, and we will talk about what this could mean for you. Okay, now let's dive in. Today, we're talking about everyone's favorite emotion, envy, and specifically why being green with envy and feeling envious can be a very good thing. I first started talking about envy a few years ago, way back in episode 139. In fact, now I feel even more strongly that it can be a powerful emotion to understand, especially in midlife when you want to do some serious regret-proofing. I remember clearly when I had insight into the way to use this emotion for good and get some super useful insight from experiencing it. If you are a regular listener, like if you go way back, then you might remember me mentioning this story. It was about 15 years ago or so. I was doing a few needlepoint projects for my kids and I realized I needed more help. I needed more information. I needed more stuff. And I discovered that there was such a thing as a specialty needlepoint store. Who knew? I did not. And, well, I guess you know, if you're familiar with places like a yarn store or a quilting store, then you might be in the know, but I did not know. Now, I was going into unfamiliar territory because I didn't even know how to needlepoint. I gotta tell you, I love telling this story for several reasons, and one of them is that it's a reminder to go all in on a new hobby when you can, because the experience of going all in, it can just be so delightful for so many reasons. You just see so much more if you go, all in. You find more people to talk to, you see more things. And as much as I love going to Michael's, going to a specialized needlepoint store is a different experience than checking out the needlepoint, on a shelf or two or in a tiny corner. Now, this particular needlepoint store was fairly large, and it had everything I was looking for and then some. The walls were packed with colorful canvases and threads. Yeah, I gotta say my head kind of exploded when I walked in there. It was overwhelming. There was just so much to look at and be inspired by. Now, at the back of the store, I noticed a small group of women gathered around a table studying intently. There were magnifying lights, beads, needlepoint projects, and all the women were wearing reading glasses. I remember noticing that. Something I grew to appreciate as the months wore on with my project. Now, what was going on over there, I wondered? The owner of the store was answering their questions and teaching them how to add these delicate, teeny little beads to their needle-pointed designs. I could not believe that either. Clearly, there was a demand for taking needlepoint to the next level. So many happy women learning stuff about an art form that I clearly didn't appreciate or understand all of the possibilities with. I waited for my turn for help and then picked my threads and got set up with my project. I bought all kinds of stuff because there's so much stuff to buy. It's so much fun. And, I basically got what I needed and off I went. Out of the beautiful store with the happy ladies and back to my job full of, really great people, but not as many people doing creative things. And there I sat at my desk, thinking about the whole experience. And I just couldn't get one thing out of my mind. I kept thinking, what the heck? I thought that this woman who owned the store figured out how to follow her passion and do what she loved. And I didn't. It was so clear. It was just so clear to me. I realized that I had been ignoring something important, kind of hiding from seeing what I needed to see. And all I felt was envy. And that felt weird. I remember exactly where I was sitting, what angle the chair was at around the desk. It was such a powerful moment. I felt so uncomfortable and sad. And I just couldn't stop thinking about this woman that I just met. Lots to process. Envy isn't a feeling many of us feel that often or feel it in a way that we really connect with it. And I appreciate that because it's a weird feeling. It feels very negative. So you know how I love to look things up? Here is what envy means. It's the feeling of discontented or resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, qualities, or luck. Now, I did feel discontent, that's for sure. I was thinking all kinds of things too. One thought I had was that this woman followed her passion, the owner of the store, and I didn't. Another thought was, I always thought I would be doing something more interesting with my career by now. And then the thought that came right after that one, I always thought I'd be an entrepreneur by my age, which was about 45 or 46 at the time. And when I think back, and I've shared this on the podcast, the first time I, did a little entrepreneurial thing was with calligraphy and envelopes, invitations when I was 12 or 13. So I had been dabbling with being an entrepreneur here and there throughout the years, and I just always imagined I'd be doing more of that. But then decades fly by, and then I start needlepoint, and I have this big epiphany. So I also thought that this woman, she figured out how to make a living from her creativity, her teaching, her passion for needlepoint. So I noticed how much of my thinking was about what I thought I'd be doing by now, or by then. My age, which, as I mentioned, was in mid-40s about that time. And then I started to feel a little regretful. I was very focused on what I hadn't done versus what I had done. And I was very proud of my career and my accomplishments and the way I'd been able to contribute. And I was pretty happy in my jobs for, most of my career. It was usually a good fit, and I was very fulfilled. Such an interesting epiphany for me. Now, just to be clear, envy really isn't the same thing as jealousy. Maybe you were thinking that as I introduced the topic, even though the two words are often used in the same way. Envy is most often used to refer to kind of a covetous feeling toward another person's stuff, or specifically their attributes or possessions or the way they show up in life, what they've accomplished in life. Envy means discontented longing for someone else's advantages. So you're discontented and you're longing for what somebody else has. So it's not the same thing as jealousy. Jealousy means unpleasant suspicion or apprehension, or like if you have a rival. Also with jealousy, there's usually more insecurity and fear, maybe about lacking something. You might feel angry or inadequate or helpless or anxious, those kinds of things. And that's not what I mean by envy. Envy is just really about when you want a possession or a situation that somebody else has. So I don't really want to focus on jealousy today, but I know it comes up a lot when we think about envy. So I just wanted to touch on it briefly. Now, for sure, I wanted what the needlepoint lady had. Now, it wasn't that I didn't want a career in needlepoint, since it was the first project I'd ever done, but I wanted a career that was aligned with my passion. I wasn't even clear what my passion was, but I knew that she had a career aligned with her passion. And when I'm talking about passion, I'm thinking about creativity. So do you remember what I called this episode? The positive potential power of envy. I totally think that. I think it's a great opportunity to look at yourself differently. What do you think? To use envy to help yourself. And the reason is that you can use envy for awareness about what you really, really, really want. And why might this be important? You might be thinking, because amazing women like yourself, we often have trouble knowing and dreaming about what we really want, right? It can become difficult. We feel disconnected from it. And I hear this all the time from the women in the middle who are in the Happiness Academy and my private clients. Like, this comes up. Envy is sneaky and it feels bad. So we don't really focus on what's going on. We just feel it. Kind of pops up when we want something that somebody else has. Did you catch that? It pops up when you realize you want something that someone else has. It's an opportunity to notice desire when you least expect it. When you're looking for desire, when you're looking for your passion project, what you want to do, it can be very difficult to acknowledge it, to own it. Your desire is another thing that might be difficult for you to notice because you just might be uncomfortable allowing yourself to desire, allowing yourself to want things and go after what you desire, because it means you have to put yourself first for a change. And that can be very difficult. It can be squirm-worthy to a lot of us midlife gals. What do you think? Have you squirmed and, done some people pleasing or not put yourself first or thought to yourself, oh, it's too indulgent, it costs too much money, it's too much time, I can't possibly do that. All that kind of stuff. So acknowledging what you want can be challenging for so many of us. Like if I asked you to do a worksheet, it might be harder for you to conjure up answers to the questions poking around about envy. But with this, it's like a sneak attack. It sneaks up on you. It just appears and it can surprise you. And then you have an opportunity. The mind drama doesn't have time to get in the way. You don't really expect it, but especially now after we're talking about it, you can feel it and you will probably notice it. So that day for me in the needlepoint store, I had no idea I was on the verge of a big epiphany and was going to feel envy. I'm just like, la-di-da, I'm going to go in and buy some threads. Ooh, how exciting. I didn't know how much I thought that I would have been an entrepreneur by then and how much that was going to bug me. I had no idea. And this is what I love so much about envy. We think envy is an ugly emotion, kind of embarrassing sometimes too, when in reality, it's like a little clean shot of insight, or at least it has the potential power to be that way. Here's what I mean. Let's dig in a little bit. Think about a time that you were envious. It could be because of a friend, a colleague, a sibling, or even someone you don't know. And then ask yourself these 5 questions. 1, why do I want what they have? 2, why do I think this would make me happy? 3, why don't I already have this thing in my life? 4, how would my life be a little different if I had this thing? And 5, what's important for me to see about myself and my desire right now? So those are the questions. Why do I want what they have? Why do I think this would make me happy? Why don't I already have this thing in my life? How would my life be different if I had this thing? And what's important for me to see about myself and my desire right now? See what I mean? I encourage you to just see whatever pops into your mind. Don't squish your reflections and thoughts down. Just notice them. I really believe that the feeling of envy provides a unique opportunity to look into your internal window of desire, what you really want in your life. And that is a big deal because, as you know, life is short. You're not getting any younger. There is absolutely a time sensitivity that so many of us feel as we age. Now, your thoughts create your feelings. So when you're feeling envious, you're thinking something that creates that feeling for you. Your challenge now is to notice what you're thinking when you feel envy. What can envy teach you? So I was thinking more about this and I did a little reading. And to my delight, I discovered that all envy isn't created equal. There's something called benign envy, which is different than malicious envy. Now, benign envy can be motivating and positive in your life. This isn't the same as the kind of envy that can lead to the feeling of resentment. This makes sense to me. If you can use envy to motivate you and to make improvements in your life that lead to more happiness and more fulfillment, that's amazing. If you can use your awareness of envy yourself and also feel inspired as a result, that is also amazing. All ways to use the potential power of envy for good. I've heard the most interesting insights about envy, and as I briefly mentioned earlier, it comes up with my clients and it also comes up with me. I'm really good at noticing envy now. I love it. Here are some examples, and hopefully they'll help you recognize a few times in your life too that you also felt envy. So maybe you notice someone's lifestyle that makes you feel envious, like your friend who has more flexibility with her time than you do and is always able to be there for her parents or go to lunch with a friend. Or your neighbor who goes to Florida in the winter so she doesn't have to deal with the dreadful cold weather. Or someone who has a hobby and has created a dedicated private space to work on her hobby. Or maybe it's that yoga studio you went to when you were in Hawaii. You know, the one where you couldn't stop thinking about why you couldn't do this too. Why couldn't you create a business that was in such a beautiful place? Or the friend who bought a small condo on her favorite island down south. Or the person you know who always prioritizes her regular manicure. Or your friend who always goes to concerts of her favorite musicians. Or the couple you met while on vacation who packed up their belongings, rented a storage unit to put them in, and took off going from one sailing trip to the next. Or what you noticed that you were feeling when you watched a YouTube video, an interview with a couple who just got off an 8-month cruise and what their lifestyle was like on the ship. Or maybe it's a cousin you have who's really excited about her retirement plan to take pottery classes, or your former colleague who retired and is launching a part-time business growing and selling flowers. Or speaking of gardens, maybe it's your neighbor who has amazing gardens and is always outside tending to them, or propagating the seeds, or making a new little garden bed that they're super excited about. Or your observation about a colleague with a successful business who still finds time to exercise in the morning. Or that friend that you have who always looks so pulled together and fashionable. Or even that other friend who you always talked about photography with back in the day, and now she's the one who's showing her work in juried exhibitions. Or the way that you felt when your colleague announced that she was going to do the laptop lifestyle thing and travel for 6 months in the coming year. And the list goes on. And all of these examples come from personal examples that I've heard from clients, from me, from my friends. Remember, you don't always feel envy when you hear about somebody doing a cool thing, and that's because cool things are subjective. But hearing about what people are doing, buying, trying, and learning, it's all a terrific data point for you. We all need data to respond to, new things to consider. And being aware of your response is telling. Learning what you don't want is just as important as learning about what you do want more of in your life. So envy isn't the same for everyone. But what's important is what it means to you and when you feel it. Now that you've been getting used to this idea, make sure to really process what you've learned about yourself. To do this, you got to slow down, my friend. You have to want to notice it. You have to want to be curious. You got to be open. You have to let it be. What you learn, what you hear yourself thinking, let it be. Give it the light of day, even if you don't do anything with it. I think you owe this to yourself. Let it out. Remember, envy is really just about when you want something that somebody else has, a possession, a situation, an experience, a lifestyle, whatever it is. It's about your desire. So, my friend, what do you desire? How comfortable are you with your desires? What will you let envy teach you? I think envy's kind of like the little Pillsbury Doughboy. It's like a poke, like a little poke, to notice what's going on up there in your brain. So to wrap things up, here are a few questions to dig a little deeper about what envy is helping you see about yourself. I think it helps you focus. Is envy helping you focus on something you've been ignoring in your life? This is really what happened to me. I wanted to be an entrepreneur more than I knew. Inspiration's another thing. Is envy inspiring you about what's possible? Maybe you always wanted to own a yoga studio, but you have so many ideas about why this isn't possible for you that you shut down your thoughts about what it would be like just as quickly as they pop into your brain. That's why you got to just let these ideas be. What about change? Is envy helping you shift or change? Maybe that woman who you always see running, even in the rain, is driving you crazy, Maybe envy about her motivation is the thing you need right now to help you focus on the exercise that you want in your life. Maybe it's pickleball. I've heard so much about pickleball lately. So many of my friends are trying it. So many of my clients have tried it, and I've even tried it, and it's great. So if that's something you're thinking about, go for it. Maybe it's the change you need. Maybe it's a secret desire. Is envy opening your eyes to give voice to a secret desire? I love this one. And this is exactly what happened to me when I heard about someone talking about a trip that I didn't even know how much I wanted to take. It was a long time ago. I've mentioned it on the podcast. It was probably 12 or 14 years ago. It was a whitewater rafting trip in the Grand Canyon. I heard somebody talking about it, and all of a sudden it was like, hey, why aren't I doing that? I want to do that. And I didn't even write it down. I didn't talk to my husband. Like, it was nowhere on the agenda. So that is the type of thing. Sometimes it helps you realize a secret desire. And what about courage? Is envy suggesting how you could be more courageous? This is such a good one. Maybe envy can be the little nudge for you to really appreciate how you're not doing something you really want to do because of fear. Way back in my first year of university, I applied to an exchange program in the Caribbean. I got accepted and I chickened out. I didn't go, but I envied those who went. I learned about fear. I learned about my fear, and I learned that I desired spending more time in the tropics and having an adventure. I just wasn't yet ready to do something like that. So I didn't. Envy can surprise you in a really good way. Envy's kind of like your non-judgmental friend who loves you no matter what. What if envy's true purpose in your life is to help you be really, really happy? The thing is that it's a super common regret to feel like you didn't let yourself be happier in your life. Tuning into your deep desires is a clue to what you really, really want. So I think envy is there for you to use for good. Okay, that's it for this episode. The Women in the Middle podcasts are all about how to love your life again after 50 and how to be more intentional about your life overall. The focus is on coaching you to incorporate mindfulness as a regular practice. This is how you put yourself on your agenda. My focus as your midlife coach is to help you get unstuck, clear, and focused on your current values and priorities so you don't have regrets. I can help you create the success you're looking for because life is too short to waste time spinning and thinking about what you can't do instead of what you can do. That's why I created the Women in the Middle Happiness Academy with you in mind, because it's a warm, supportive, and fun coaching community of like-minded women who embrace the gift of aging and grow forward together. It's totally possible to feel great about your roadmap to a more fun, meaningful, and regret-free next chapter. I want this for you too, so let's talk about it and see if the Academy makes sense for you this year. Apply and book your free, no-obligation consult momentum call at www.womeninthemiddleacademy.com. There are exciting new bonuses that you are not going to want to miss. And finally, for show notes and links, head over to www.susierosenstein.com and click the podcast tab and look for episode 392. You'll also see links there for my new show, Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs. Thanks so much for listening. It's time for you to put yourself first, one thought at a time. I'm Susie Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you next week.